for some of you that have been on before, you know that we do a presentation from the West Coast, and then we'll have a presentation from the East Coast. Chris will be doing their presentation today. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start it off by introducing Nicole Brandson from Caribou Safety Consulting. Nicole has been fairly busy and doing a lot of work for health and safety. In 2007, she started Caribou Safety Consulting, but even before then, she was sort of getting boots dirty out on the ground. She has extensive experience with First Nations and with forestry, health, community programs, and municipal services. And Nicole is also one of our MAG auditors. So I'm lucky enough to be able to go out and spend time with her each year during their shadow audits and work with Nicole. So I know that she's a very passionate and talented and professional safety professional. And for those on the call that have met Nicole before, you know that she really knows how to dig into the dirty, dark corners. So she does a great job. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nicole.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you for the introduction. So Bill asked me Tammy and Bill asked me a couple months ago to speak on my involvement with the First Nation communities in and around my area. So I put together a bit of a PowerPoint here. So I'll let Tammy, we had some technical difficulties of me being able to start it. So when I was asked to do this, just a little bit of background, I felt very like I am not qualified to speak on this. It was definitely a little bit out of my wheelhouse, even though I've worked with First Nation communities for many years. And since I started my business, I was like, what am I supposed to say? So I actually did a little research and worked with my clients who are First Nation and asked them what I should say. And it was interesting. The first time I started kind of building the PowerPoint, I had it labeled as speaking to the people. And I say this all very humbly. And as I continue to learn, I thought I'd share some of my learnings. They did not like that title. And they said it was like I was speaking to them. I worked on the title a little bit. Since that, it was kind of a little bit of a choke because I never want to say that I'm speaking to people. So I renamed it Building Trust and Connection because that's truly what it has been for the 20 years I've been in business. So we'll just get started, Tammy. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. So I thought I'd give you guys a bit of an introduction of who I am. So I am Caribou Safety. I'm the owner. I'm an avid mountain biker, as you can see in the picture, some of my selfies. I have a son. He is getting married on Saturday, and that's momentous. And I love the outdoors. I go lots of hiking. I go hiking with my son, pretty tight with him, and I work a lot these days. So that's kind of who I am and my company. So we can go forward. My career path over the years, it seems that I've always kind of taken this take to industry. My dad was a carpenter by trade, owned his own business, and my first job was the School of Hard Knocks, working with my father over the summers and on construction sites. And then through the years, it's just a transition into owning my own business. My last few years I spent at Toco working there. In 2007, I established Caribou Safety Consulting. So that is the start of my self-employment. So in the beginning, I definitely had a bit of a humble start. You don't start with big things, you start with small things. And I did a lot of just running safety meetings in truck shops and just doing a lot of smaller, hands-on type safety. And a few of my first clients were First Nations, and I've learned a lot through that. And I'll go through the PowerPoint and teach you some of my learning, or at least explain some of my learnings. So now in 2024, I'm pretty busy, probably over 60 audits a year with all different sizes. My last biggest audit was 1,200 people, so that felt momentous. I work all over the province and in most industries. So my involvement with First Nation communities, they're really multifaceted. They have a lot of different sectors in their corporations. So I've worked with a lot of them through that. I also instruct industrial courses and I consult. So where I'm from, just to kind of give you an outline, I'm from Williams Lake. I was not born there, but I was raised there. I've been there since I was 2. The Cariboo-Chilcotin is the region that we live in. The first picture on the far left, or my far left, is Williams Lake. My friend there, Beth, she's riding bikes, so that's what we do to keep ourselves sane and healthy. We have a very strong network of mountain biking there. It's phenomenal. If you ever want to come ride a bike or hike, I highly recommend stopping in. The view of the river there, that's, you know, a pretty epic picture. And those other 2 pictures are on First Nation territory and places I've hiked before. So that's kind of the Cariboo-Chilcotin region and where I live. So in and around the Cariboo region, we have 18 different First Nation communities. So I listed them all. I was actually surprised. I had to do a little research myself on all the different communities in the Cariboo region. Of those 18, I have worked for all but 3. So not ongoing, just projects. Some of them are ongoing, but there's a, you know, obviously there's a huge representation of First Nation communities, and it's really been an honor to work with so many. So that is the list of names that we have in our region. So I thought I'd give you a bit of an outline of the First Nation culture. If you've ever, you know, been around or been to an event with the First Nation culture being predominantly there, they're really rooted in storytelling, and I can attest to that in things I've witnessed. They, you know, they've always got a story to tell me. So a lot of it is passed on from generation to generation, a lot of traditions, a lot of customs and practices. You know, they have a very strong family culture. It's interesting to hear them talk about, you know, their aunts and their cousins, and you know, they all seem very tight, like a tight-knit community. So the teachings, they truly, I can say that, you know, is that they've really passed on that culture and their stories from the past, and they take care of their elders. You know, a lot of the communities I work with do firewood cutting, and they go and deliver the firewood to the elders. They take care of their people. Like, it's amazing. I love it. So that's something that they are deeply rooted in. So when I started building this PowerPoint, I was like, oh boy, what am I going to say? And so I went out. I consult right now, not full time, but regularly, month to month, to 2 different First Nation communities. And I have for many years. And the one company, their company is Dechen Ventures. And when I went out there, they all love to, I've worked there for many years, and I've established a bit of a connection with them. So they're all gathered around me. There's probably 30 people, 30 workers. We're all getting ready to get some safety stuff. So, and I'm like, hey, you guys, I got a question. And they're like, yeah, what's up, Nicole? What's up? And I'm like, hey, I'm going to do a presentation on my work with First Nations. Well, they dispersed, like, it was just amazing. There was nobody standing around me. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I guess that's not going to do very good. They're not going to help me out too much. But Harvey Dick is his name. He's a very dear person to me. He said, speak from the heart and you won't go wrong. So I might say the wrong things, but I am speaking from my perspective and my involvement. And I hope that you can hear that through this presentation. So I needed a little bit more than speak from the heart. I asked them, what else do I say, guys? And they're like, whatever you do, Nicole, don't talk about the bad. And I'm like, I won't talk about the bad. So here's some pictures in this slide. A lot of our region was affected by forest fires, and it has been and it continues to be. One of my companies that I work with, Dechen, and their band name is Chocotine. They had massive wildfire affect them, and they really fought to save their land, and that's deeply rooted in their culture now. They feel very proud of what they did and how they saved their community. So that was a big impact, and I can still see that in as we approach summer, how they get ready and how they take it very seriously in their preparation. Second slide is a Sasquatch. Oh, just go back, Tammy. I just want to talk a little bit. Sorry. The little picture of the Sasquatch. They're always telling me stories about Sasquatch sightings. That truly is a part. I tease them and laugh, but that's, you know, they love to tell me about the things that they see, and they'll tell me stories. The picture directly below the Sasquatch is a game called Lahal. In a nutshell, I've been invited. It's amazing. Basically, in a nutshell, I've asked lots about it, and it's basically like a hot potato, but there's deer antler, like a deer bone in their hands, and they bet, and you have to be really good at hiding who's holding the antler. So there's that. The picture too, besides the Lahal game, is an artifact that one of my clients found, and he wanted to give that to me. I'm like, no, you have to keep that. So they're very, they love finding cultural things, and it's really interesting to see what they find and how they know what it is, and it's great. There's some new signage in and around our communities, just directing, and I like that it's written in their native tongue, with Saidaldel. Namaya is Hanikwatin. So that's really starting to show. I really like that. You know, we don't go by necessarily the English names as much anymore. We go by their community names, and I'm happy to see that. And of course, there's the logging aspect. Most of the First Nations have some degree and some exposure to logging in and around their communities. So some things that I made a mistake, and I wanted to share this with you. You know, I've been at this since 2007, and you know, it's fantastic work to work with the communities, but I wanted to make a difference. And at the beginning, I remember thinking, I'm not reaching these people. And you can see in that picture, the safety guy in the orange, he's standing up above and he's kind of talking down to his crew. That's what it felt like. And it really, I am a fast moving person. And if you work with First Nations, it is my speed and the community speed is really different. So I was like guns a-blazing, I'm going to make a big difference. And it was something that I just, they put a wall up against me. If I come in intense and fast, they stop me. And it really felt like that was happening at the beginning. I wanted to do a good job, but it was more, let's just get this job done. You know, I have the task at hand, and I am going to see this through, you know, in the next hour, or my time frame, whatever that might be. So when I wanted to get the job done, I was in a rush and I was too fast, and it really didn't feel like I was making a difference. So you can see there's a lot of eyes in that. I remember it was in 2018, I was gonna step down from some of my commitments to I was like, I'm not doing anything different here. I'm not making a difference, and I feel very disconnected to my crew. You know, I took a really good look at myself, and I learned these things. So those are my mistakes that I definitely feel like, and I'm still making them. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I still am always in a rush. But I've really tried to change that. So in 2018, there was a lot of the catchphrase. I don't know if that's the correct word, so excuse me if I'm wrong. There was a lot of systemic racism. I don't know if you guys remember that term coming up a lot in social media, and I was intrigued by that, just growing up in Williams Lake. And what is systemic racism? Like, I know what racism is, but what is systemic racism? And it was a lot of self-reflection. Am I systemically racist? Like, could I possibly be? And it really was this self-righteous talk to myself that I was not racist. I was the least racist. And the top picture, I just want to point out, and I'll bring that up again. That's one of the First Nation, the schools, that's the mission. We call it the mission. That was, it's under the media right now. So I'll get into what that is. But that is a picture from the Williams Lake area. So the next couple slides are my check to myself about what that systemic racism means. So this is a 10-minute Tammy. Just want to play just a couple minutes of it. Oh, it doesn't have sound.
Oh. I'll need to stop sharing probably and change it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway, we don't have to. We can skip through that. It was just a bit of a check, back when this, I think it was in 2018, 19, there was when that systemic racism really came into the media, and a check on us is just Canada's involvement in racism and what that meant. So I think that we have to do a check on ourselves of what that meant, and my personal journey in that, and it really has been enlightening, and a gut check of what that meant. We can go on, Tammy. So the St. Joseph's Mission School. So this was that first picture that I brought that up. This was a residential school in Williams Lake. So it ran between 1886 and 1981. I'll show my age a little bit. It was running when I was in school. And we used to do field trips to the school to to see what was, like our school went to their school to, I don't know, whatever we were doing there, going to play in the field. And thousands of Indigenous children were forced to attend this school. And a lot of my First Nation clients, they went or had their families, like family members went. And this is, I mean, we have, I can't enough, forgive me for not knowing the number of children that they had, or from potentially, I think is what the right word would be, of people who were buried there, but it's still under investigation. And it's a very sensitive topic to a lot of communities, or a lot of members in the communities in my area, as they went or their parents went. So this building is now torn down. It's no longer, it's all cordoned off. I think there's a movie about this school going on right now. But in high school, like after this was closed in 1981, in high school, we used to go there, and this is awful, but we used to go there, and like, it was kind of like a haunted house type thing. And I don't know if we knew any different when I was in high school, but I think on some level we knew it wasn't good. And I still, like, when you drive past that area, you have a gut check of what potentially went on there. So that's very close to, that's about 5 kilometers away from one of my First Nation communities that I work with on a regular basis. So it's right in my community, and it's predominant there. So in my journey of checking myself to see what systemic racism meant and if I was, these are some of the books I read. I found it very hard to talk about it to anybody, to say, have I ever made you feel uncomfortable? Am I racist? What does this mean? Like to talk to a First Nation friend or client, it felt too like I was going to say the wrong thing. So I read those books, and I mean, just to name a few, I'm a huge book reader. And if you're a reader, take a picture of those, because some of those books are very, very worthwhile to read. And yes, I, in fact, had definitely some, unfortunately, and I say that humbly, and I didn't mean to, but some racism I needed to check. And it wasn't necessarily a known thing. It was just how we were raised. And it was really an understanding of what my clients, what my First Nation community around me, how they felt in a white world. And yeah, I'm a white female. Mostly my clients are males, but how was I going to act different, and how was I going to be an equal and make a difference to them from a safety world? So those were really good lessons for me to read and to understand really what the communities were coming from and how they felt. So that was an excellent starting point for my journey. So after I kind of did my research and gut check, I decided, I like working there. It was great work. I needed to realign myself and really make a commitment to them. I feel like those clients of mine, they have people that, contractors, and they come in and they come out. They're there for a short time and not a long time. So I decided that I would realign my business and make a commitment to them and stick with them for the long haul. And it really, I think that in itself is that the longevity of my commitment to them, or my working with them, has really been a game changer for both of both of us, I guess. So I needed to make and establish a connection with my clients. And remember when I said I was always in a rush, they love to have the communities I work with, they want to have lunch first. And I was like, oh, no, I'm good. I gotta go. I stopped myself from ever saying no to joining a meal with them. And sometimes I'm like, wow, I think I'm gonna hear, like, I've been invited to a lunch. It's supposed to start at 1 and the meeting's going to start at 2. And I get there and I'm like, we're not eating at 1 and that meeting is not starting at 2. So it's really, it's a game changer for establishing connection. But in that time, I can kind of allow myself that ability to connect with them, like to not talk about business, for them to tell me the stories. And I've made bannock with the ladies in the kitchen, and I'm like, can you give me the recipe? They call me Mito. So their language is Chilcotin predominantly, not all of them, but the one I've learned a bit of language. So they're Nankani, I am Mito, and they say Mito cannot make bannock. I've tried to get the recipe and they're like, no, you're Mito. So it's been a journey of making those connections and laughing along the way. And my time frame is definitely it's for the long haul. So Dechen Ventures this is one of my clients that I work with on a regular basis. So those pictures are from I was out there for a safety audit a couple weeks ago, and those are pictures from their community. So the totem pole is right beside where we have our morning tailgates. And when I turn away from the totem pole, the picture of the fence is their view of their land. If you look at the high vis vest, there's like a little, that's Harvey's. He always wears that around his neck, and inside there is a stone, and it's like a token of good luck. But it's all beaded, and it was beaded by a community member. And then there's the safety binder full of good stuff in there. And there's one of my gentlemen there. He's wearing his He always tells me the story about the Sasquatch. So he was wearing his Sasquatch sweater that day. So I asked if I could take a picture. So that's to Chen. So they're one of my favorite clients. I love working with them. So they're good. And then the other one, this is where the St. Joseph's Mission School is. They're Borland Creek, which is Williams Lake First Nation community. They also are a company that I work with on a regular basis. So the picture on the far right, that's their territory. It looks right over Williams Lake. It borders right around the lake. They have Borland Creek logging as well as civiculture. So that's another client of mine that I work with on a regular basis. So things that I have experienced during work that are non-related to work, which has been probably one of my biggest honors, truly, is I have been invited to a cultural healing center. It was I was out doing an audit, and one of the elders says, "You got some time to come to a healing thing, Nicole?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Okay, well, just follow me." And we went down this dusty Chilcotin Road. I'm like, where is he taking me? Like, he was driving in his truck, I'm driving in another. I'm like, oh boy, where are we going? And all of a sudden we came across this lake, and there was teepees, and there was people everywhere, and it was amazing. And so they had a bunch of things that, I ate some moose stew, we did some beading. It was really, really cool. Smudging was another thing. I went to go teach, some boring, dry safety thing there at one of the communities, and they asked if we could do a smudge before we started, and I'm like, absolutely. And so they light a tobacco fire in the shell there. There's a picture there. And then they take a, feather, like a wing, and then they smudge you. And while they're smudging you, they pray. And I was bawling. I couldn't even, I'm thinking to myself, how am I ever going to be able to teach after this? Like, I don't know. It really affected me. It was amazing. But the smudging and the prayers were amazing. So they're one of the First Nations, something that's very sacred to them is the tobacco. So they also do sacred fires. So you put tobacco into a piece of cloth, and then you write your wish or what you want to pray for, and then you put it into the fire, and the fire burns for a few days, and an elder is always there keeping it lit. So it's pretty meaningful. Definitely the storytelling I have learned. I'm really honored. I love when they teach me their language. Oftentimes I get the swear words, which is fun, and I try not to use them very much, but I can count to 10 and say all the animals in Chilcotin, and I have a few good phrases. So there's definitely the language, which is when you're standing around in a safety meeting before you begin talking and they're all speaking in Chilcotin, it is the most beautiful thing to listen to. And of course they're gathering around food. The picture at the bottom is Indian tacos, which, oh my goodness, they're so good. That's Bannock, and they make the taco. It's yum, yum, yum. I love it when they give me leftovers. And then my wish list still, I have never been to a sweat. Love to be invited to a sweat. And then I really want to get it has to come to me in the right way, but a beaded lanyard, the beading of the First Nations, it's just amazing. I love it. So that's some really pros. So my learnings in this and things that I wanted to share with you, if you ever get the chance to work with communities, it really takes time to build the trust, you know, from both parties, from both myself and to them. It takes effort and understanding. I think that every time I go out and work with my crews, I can learn something, and you just have to, I have to be open, and we have to be open to hearing what we need to learn. So their language, their teasing, like they always have a joke, and they tell me something and then they wait to see if I believe them. And so I'm like, are you telling me the truth this time? And they're like, oh, ha, ha, no, we were just seeing if you bought it. So they really have that rich nature and camaraderie. And I really want to emphasize that once we have that trust and connection, we can build a safer, because that's why I'm there, is to build a safer community and a team. So things that I want to learn more of, I want to learn their cultural pace. I have this really bad habit, and I think it's, you know, an English thing. We don't, it's not like I interrupt, but we almost, in our conversations, we cut each other off. And when I am talking with the First Nation communities, they have a pause. And it's, for me, sometimes almost an uncomfortable pause before they respond. And then they speak. And I almost always want to fill in the blank, you know, and start speaking before they get a chance. So it's something that, you know, it's patience that I want to work on, and letting them speak as they should. I think of a society, we want communities to catch up, and I think that's an error. I don't think that the nations are digging in their heels to an economic growth. I think that they want to grow. They want to be, they're proud. And I just think that we have a lack of understanding of, or I did, a lack of understanding of how to make it work for both of us. So my goal, these are pictures here. It's a very, you know, colorful slide. Those are all pictures around Williams Lake that I've taken of you know, the powwows, their dresses. The one on the far right, or my far right, is the Williams Lake First Nation chief, Willie Sellers. He's a very prominent person in the community and in Canada. Speaking for First Nations, he's done a lot of good. So my goal is, when I work with the First Nation communities, is to make them a juggernaut. And Tammy, I'll go to what that means. That word juggernaut really speaks a lot to me. Is a massive and force, campaign, movement, or object that crushes whatever's in its path. So that's my hope. That they can stand and be that in the world of they work in, and definitely from a safety culture. So there we have it.
Thanks, Nicole. That truly was speaking from the heart, and I really enjoyed some of the stories that you were talking about, and you're pretty lucky to be able to do what you do, and you know, you're so skilled, and I see that skill every time I'm with you. So way to go. You know,
thank you.
It was great. So does anybody have any questions for Nicole?
Telling me I have to go to work now?
Okay, if there's no questions, I'll pass it over to Chris. And Chris, I don't know if you can introduce yourself, or I guess Tom's not here anymore to introduce you. And just for everybody that's been involved in these, Tom Wellen has retired, and Chris is taking over for Tom.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Bill. So yes, Chris Serratore, I'm Director of Health and Safety Services with Workplace Safety North, based out here in Ontario. You know, we work primarily with forest sector and mining sector, providing health and safety services sort of across the province. And that's really what we do. And I'm, happy to be part of this. I was, party to some of the previous meetings, when Tom was still the primary contact for representing our group. And so I do appreciate being offered the opportunity to continue along the partnership, and look forward to more to come. And yes, so I guess, from that perspective, thank you for the presentation, Nicole. That was informative and much appreciated. So I guess moving to the next, I guess, Tammy, I just asked you, do you have the presentation able to call
Yeah,
up
do you want
there?
me to share? I can share it. Sure.
Yeah, if you could.
No
It's just,
problem.
I am traveling today,
Yeah, sure.
so just working off of my iPhone in the truck. So that's great. Thank you for doing that. So yeah, the topic that I brought forward today is the heat stress prevention. We had reached out to some of our Forestry Advisory Committee members, and this was a topic that was of interest. And we did have one of our, our members that was, interested in putting some information forward to share, but they just felt that they, it was still a little bit still in the early stages of what they had implemented, so they wanted to give it a little bit more time. So perhaps that'll be a, a follow-up presentation. But what I've put together today is really, there was some new resources. There's sort of two aspects of what I'll be covering today with respect to heat stress. And one is that there's some new resources that were put together by the occupational health clinics for Ontario here. So that's one of the some of the resources that you're going to see later on in the presentation. And then the first sort of where I'm going to kick off is that one of the things that we're facing here in Ontario is that there's some proposed changes to add some heat stress prevention criteria within the health and safety legislation in Ontario. So it hasn't yet come into effect. And these things usually take some time to become official legislation. But there was a consultation that started in September of 23, so last fall. There's information that's been collected. There's usually a review period, and then if there is a decision to move ahead with, putting the legislation in place, they'll take it to that next steps. But for now, I'm just going to kind of walk through what there is, the steps that's currently there, and then what's being proposed. So currently, anything related to heat stress in Ontario is just covered under the general duty clauses, similar to just those taking every reasonable precautions, and probably what, in other jurisdictions where you have similar legislation. So that's really the first piece. And what our enforcement body in Ontario, the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development, they use that American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists method of assessing a worker's risk of heat stress. And they base it on that wet bulb globe temperature and the threshold for the purpose of enforcing that, general duty clause. So we can move on to the next piece here. So really what they're proposing is these amendments to the legislation, and it just kind of breaks it down into 4 categories. So the first being just that there would be introduction of heat stress exposure limits based on that ACGIH method. The second component is really provide for the use of other methods to assess a worker's risk of exposure to heat stress. So, providing that a company is able to demonstrate, that they have a validated method, that would be accepted. And then the third component is require employers to identify and implement measures and procedures to control heat exposures based on the hierarchy of controls. And the fourth component, require employers to provide worker information and instruction on recognizing the signs and symptoms of heat-related illnesses and the measures to protect. So again, we'll move to the next one. So again, this just provides a little bit more background into the proposed legislation. So all employers would have a duty to take all measures reasonably necessary in the circumstances to protect workers from exposure to hazardous thermal conditions that may result in a heat-related illness or a worker's core body temperature exceeding 38 degrees Celsius or 100 Fahrenheit. So this would require compliance with heat stress exposure limits for light to very heavy work loads in accordance with methods used to determine heat exposure. So, I'm sure many of you are already familiar with, these types of practices and have, been familiarized to some of these various protocols. So it's just, this would formalize it through the legislation. To the next slide, please. So then there would be an allowance for the use of methods other than the ACGIH method to assess a worker's exposure to heat stress if that method is in accordance with recognized industrial hygiene practices and it equally protects the health and safety of workers. And also if physiological monitoring is used as part of an alternative method of assessing exposure to heat stress, it must be conducted under the supervision of a person who is qualified because of their knowledge, training, and experience to recognize and assess heat strain and heat-related illnesses resulting from hot work conditions. So again, just that same basis of identifying competency with those skill sets if you're going to be implementing it as part of a workplace health and safety program. These next components just outline, some of the other aspects of the program. So with respect to engineering controls must be used. They must be used to maintain a worker's heat exposure within a heat stress exposure limits. There are exceptions. So obviously, if it's an outdoor work environment, not as easy to implement engineering controls. So those engineering controls would really be most directed towards indoor work environments, in mills or in other hot work environments. Any additional measures and procedures implemented beyond engineering controls and heat exposures must be developed in consultation with the Joint Health and Safety Committee or Health and Safety representative, if there is one. They must include in administrative controls, such as reducing the amount of time a worker spends in exposure to heat through implementation of a work rest cycle. Again, adjusting the start of the workday or provision of more frequent breaks. So again, those are already practices which are used within, the current guidelines and a lot of what's implemented. And again, it includes the use of personal protective equipment such as anti-radiant heat or reflective clothing. And in the case of outdoor work, exposure to solar radiation, the use of adequate head protection, clothing, and sunscreen. And all of those procedures and guidelines would be expected to be, in writing and kind of living and breathing within the workplace so that you could demonstrate that people have been properly trained. Right. Next piece here. Other requirements that cool, potable drinking water or another adequate hydrating fluid be provided by the employer close to the work areas for the use of workers in hot conditions. And also a requirement that workers be provided the following information and instruction where the thermal conditions in a workplace are related to a specific work process will pose or likely to pose a hazard to the worker's health or safety. Additional things here. So the measures and procedures to be implemented to protect a worker, including the engineering controls to be implemented, the importance of staying hydrated and taking breaks and all rest periods identified in the work rest cycle set out in the measures and procedures, the early signs and symptoms of heat strain and heat-related illness, and the precautions to be taken to avoid illness or injury, as well as the steps the workers should immediately take if they suspect they are experiencing heat strain or related illness. So again, another key point there is just in areas where a heat warning has been issued by Environment and Climate Change Canada, a requirement for employers of workers working outdoors or workers who face an increased risk of developing heat-related illness as a result of that change in their usual thermal workplace conditions to advise them of the heat warning and the importance of staying hydrated and taking breaks, and all rest periods identified in the work rest cycle set out in the employer's measures and procedures. So again, a provision like that would really come into play for silviculture operations where there's, certainly a higher vulnerability to those types of, maybe dramatic changes or changing weather conditions in certain regions and affecting those, sort of microclimates more drastically than others. So this, the next part, I just really what I did is tried to capture a summary of sort of what's been put into this updated heat stress toolkit, and that in the the copy that will be provided to you post the meeting today. It is in a PDF format, and anywhere where you'll see the links, those are live links, so it should take you right to the specific sections of the website, the OCAL website. So that first link that you see on that page, it does, and I guess, I mean, just I'll let you folks can explore that after at your own convenience, but you will find that all of those links are live, and it will take you to the resources. So that first one will bring you to sort of the main page of the OCAL site where they've housed all of these resources. This next one here, or sorry, yeah, if you go to that next one, that one there it shows you some of the graphics of what's included in their Humidex based heat stress calculator. And again, it is a web-based tool. You can, download this. The calculator, if, clicking on that link, which you'll see, when you have the file, it will open it up, and you would essentially walk you through that whole series of questions you see on the right-hand side of the slide there. So again, those are just, there's a series of questions that you would answer based on, some of the information you have at the site, and that will, bring you to, the resolution of what you should be following in terms of the workplace practices. In the next slide, you'll see these graphics are bringing you to PDF documents that are actually quite detailed and very useful for helping you develop your protocols within the workplace. So the first one on the left of the screen is the Heat Stress Awareness Guide. And again, it's a full PDF document. They're available in both English and French. The second guide in the middle of the page is the Physiological Monitoring Guide. Again, really helpful for establishing protocols within the workplace, and some good detailed, structure within that guide. Again, both available in English and French. And then on the far right there, that's the heat stress prevention tools and strategies. Again, very helpful in terms of just establishing your protocols within the workplace. And this one is available in English, French, and Spanish. So that's the added bonus with that document. And again, these are really good guides. And I know there's other resources out and about and things that we've all had access to before. But again, I think the relevance here is just that these are, sort of the newest resources. And again, it was developed as a partnership, from both OCAL, those sort of the occupational health clinics for Ontario workers, and also CROSH, which is the Center for research on occupational health and safety. So some good research went into those documents. And I just point to some of the resources that we have within our web page and within Workplace Safety North, and just some of the things that we've always defaulted to. So the first one you'll see there is a link to our mine rescue heat stress report and standard developed, and the resources there. There's two links there, and that second link brings you right to the PDF report. So that's a 2014 report, and it kind of touches on that, so a lot of what's included in that middle document from the previous slide with respect to the physiological piece. There was some research done, and just on that, working in hot environments. And I think the other piece is just that there's other aspects at play based on work where you're actually elevating your physiological systems, higher heart rate, strenuous works like, so, again, this would be applicable to situations for silviculture and other work in mill environments where there would be manual work in these hot environments. So when you compound the factors of the physiological load with the additional heat stress factors, that's again providing some extra insight into how to manage that. And then some of the other resources we have there, just how to manage heat stress in the workplace. There's a link on that. The Beat the Heat safety meeting talk and the leader's guide. So again, that's something that you can use within the workplace for a supervisor to have a talk to use with the workers on heat stress. And then we have a safety alert in there. So that's sort of the last piece from the resources side of things. So that's really what I wanted to share for today. I mean, I kept it brief in terms of just getting into the detail there, because really I know that trying to get into the detail of this content, you're probably best to be actually downloading the documents, printing them off, having them in your hand, going through the detail. And again, sharing is a powerful thing. So that's what, again, I think these resources, when they come out, again, this is probably some of the more current ones that are available right now in Canada. So again, it's good for your group as well to have access to, and hopefully we'll find some benefit in it. So I'll kind of stop there, and just if there's any questions on that, or any other further discussion, or if people have other good resources related to heat stress and other resources that aren't, or you haven't seen in here that you would like to share, I'd be open to that as well too. Right, so not hearing any other
So Chris,
questions or any.
Chris, I had a quick question. The actual tool that you had there, is that in use now? How is there any feedback on that?
Yeah, it's pretty early. So see, yeah, I guess because it was the launch of these really just happened officially about 2 months ago. And I think really our first heat event out in this part of the country just happened last week. So I think it's still pretty early. So again, a lot of companies have probably, and that was kind of what the feedback that I received for the other person that was, potentially going to share some of their internal resources of what they've developed at their sites. But, again, just still feeling it's a little bit in the early stages for implementing, what they've, redeveloped. So I can certainly appreciate that aspect of it, because again, it's like with any, once you start collecting data, so if you're starting to collect temperatures using, the newer, protocols or anything that you may have changed or adopted, it would still be fairly new with this, if you're sort of following these resources to the guide. But I think the other key piece is that, with sort of knowing that the Ontario government is looking at implementing legislative changes, then other jurisdictions also kind of tend to follow suit. So again, it's just a bit of a, awareness piece that for any employer, it's always good that whatever resources are probably the most current, that's probably the best thing to start basing your, your own internal policies and procedures on.
Great. Thanks for that presentation, Chris. That was really good.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
So if there's no questions, I guess we can call that the day then, and we can get back to work instead of listening to all these great things that everybody's talking about. Okay, I'd like to thank
Right.
everybody for coming and thank both Nicole and Chris for their presentations. Both of them were great and really had a lot of good content in it. And I certainly, learned a few things from both of them. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks,
goodbye,
everyone.
everybody.
Okay, take care.